This film starts with gangsters packing drugs. Suddenly, a masked man arrives and attacks them, trying to steal their drugs. Even though he's alone, the masked man defeats the gangsters one by one. Just as he's about to escape with the drugs, the police show up, catch him, and put him in jail. The masked man is Terry Savage, a former Marine sergeant who won many medals for his service, especially in Afghanistan. Before Terry is sent to prison, Police Commissioner Harvey visits him. He asks Terry why a war hero like him has turned into a criminal. Terry explains that it's because he has struggled to find a good job after leaving the military. He feels his country doesn't value his service. Harvey then offers Terry a mission while he's in prison, to investigate a prison warden suspected of many crimes, like human rights abuses, corruption, and running a drug business. Harvey said the police had trouble investigating the prison because it was highly secure. The chief warden was thought to be protected by mafia groups and corrupt officials. Harvey promised that if Terry finished his mission, he would be freed from all punishment, and his criminal record would be erased. Terry needed the money to pay for his seriously ill daughter's medical bills, which made him willing to take the risky job. Harvey gave him 10 days to complete the mission. After making the deal, Terry was taken to the prison with other new prisoners. They were met by a lieutenant named Killian and his deputy, Roy. Killian warned the new prisoners to follow the warden's orders or they would face severe punishment. All the prisoners, including Terry, received a chip injection in their necks to track their movements. They were then put in their cell rooms. Terry soon realized that this prison was different from others. Most of the prisoners were dangerous criminals. When Terry got to his cell, he found a cell phone hidden under the bed left there by Harvey. Terry planned to use the phone to report all the crimes happening in the prison to Harvey. The scene then changed and showed Terry in the dining room. Not long after, a prisoner named Chris suddenly tried to make trouble with him, but he chose not to serve Chris, even though Terry could have beaten him up. The next day, when Terry was in the prison yard, he was visited by a prisoner named John, who invited him to join his mafia group. John explained that Terry would be safe if he had allies in prison, but he refused and said that he preferred to act alone. In the evening, while in the laundry room, Terry saw John being attacked by a group of prisoners, but John easily overpowered them. At night, it was Terry's turn to be attacked by Chris and his group in his cell. In the middle of the fight, a prisoner came to help him. Not long after, the wardens came and separated them. After that, the prisoners who fought, including Terry, were locked up in their respective isolation rooms. The next day, Chris and Terry were brought by Killian to face the chief warden named Lucas. Chris received a stun sentence from Lucas because he attacked new prisoners without permission. After that, Terry was brought into Lucas's room, and Lucas apologized to him for the attack by Chris and his comrades. Soon after, Lucas told Terry to sit down because he was interested in Terry's background as an ex-Marine, and he might be able to rely on him. He explained that he managed a room he called the dungeon. Lucas added that if Terry wanted to work with him as a fighter in the dungeon, he promised to get Terry out of prison as soon as possible, so he could meet his daughter again. After that, Lucas gave Terry a fighter uniform and told him to meet a prisoner who would become his roommate. Then, a female warden named Maria escorted Terry to the cell room. When he just entered the cell room, he was surprised because it turned out that the one who would become his roommate was a prisoner named Bones, who had helped him last night. Terry, curious, asked why Bones was good at fighting. Bones replied that his father was a martial arts master. Bones then warned him about the harshness of fighting in the dungeon, but also promised to help him face all his opponents. After that, Terry went to the toilet and reported to Harvey about the dungeon. The next day, Bones took Terry to a gym room to practice martial arts in preparation for facing the fighters in the dungeon. Next, he introduced Terry to which mafia groups would be tough opponents for him later, and one of them was John, the top dog or defending champion. Terry learned that the selected prisoners would be brought to the dungeon to fight every Friday night, and that night was his turn. Terry, who was already wearing a fighter uniform, was brought by Killian and Maria to the fighting arena, and was also accompanied by Bones. Upon arrival, Terry saw Lucas, who was also there and sitting on his throne. When Terry had just arrived at the dungeon, Lucas explained that this place was for wild fights without rules, besides guides. The fight would be broadcast live to all prisoners and on a paid basis on the internet. At the same time, there was a fight between representatives of two mafia groups who were against each other in prison, and the one fighting was John, the reigning champion with the nickname Freeway. John won the battle quite easily and defended his title as top dog. After that, it was Terry's turn to face El Papiro, a Mexican mafia group's representative. In the first round, Terry, who was still stiff, was easily knocked out by El Papiro. But in the second round his adrenaline began to race. In the end, he turned things around and won the fight with a knockout victory over El Papiro. His victory was greeted with cheers from the prisoners watching, including Lucas, the warden, who looked satisfied with his appearance. After the fight, John was asked to face Lucas to choose a reward for his victory. Lucas said that John could make any request he wanted, and he asked to be released from prison as Lucas had previously promised. However, Lucas refused his request and explained that John had to win at least one more fight, and after that he would be released. Hearing this, John warned Lucas that if he did not keep his promise, John, his group, and the other prisoners would create a big riot in prison. The scene then changes and shows Terry being visited by a lawyer named Jeanette, who used to help free war veteran prisoners. She said she had seen and concluded that the criminal case that ensnared Terry was because he was forced to find the money for his daughter's medical expenses. So, Jeanette intended to offer legal assistance to get him out of jail. However, Terry was currently carrying out a secret mission from Harvey, so he was forced to refuse legal assistance from her. The scene changed again, and Terry was seen currently in the dining room. John suddenly threatened him because John was not happy with his victory last night. John then warned Terry not to mess with him if he didn't want to get into serious trouble in prison. Long story short, Terry was back in the fight, and this time he had to face Dragon, one of Asia's mafia group prisoners who looked arrogant while showing off the kung fu moves he mastered. But unexpectedly, Dragon was actually defeated by Terry with just one punch, which made John even more furious because he worried Terry would replace his position as top dog or the strongest prisoner in prison. When Terry returned to the cell room, Bones explained why he was imprisoned, saying he had killed the person who violated his younger sister. Hearing that, Terry sympathized and said that he was a good man. At the same time, Bones also praised Terry, saying he was a good father. The next day, when Terry was on duty, he was suddenly attacked by several members of John's group. Maria, who saw this, tried to intervene but was instead stabbed by one of John's men. Luckily, she was rescued, which made Terry furious. So he went to Lucas and asked him to arrange a fight between him and John. Lucas refused Terry's request and said he was not ready to fight John, a top dog or champion fighter. But Terry still insisted and urged him to arrange the fight. On the other hand, John apparently never ordered his crew to attack Terry, and he was actually very angry when he knew about the careless actions of his members. After that, Lucas took John's group to the dungeon to be punished because he was upset over their actions, which had caused one of the wardens to become injured. Without thinking twice, Lucas even had the heart to kill two of John's men as a form of warning to John to take care of his group and not break the rules he had made. After warning John, Lucas finally told him to fight Terry. Meanwhile, Terry seemed to be training hard for the match, but he also managed to send information about the prison situation and the violations he encountered to Harvey. Long story short, the battle between Terry and John began, and in the first round, the fight was dominated by Terry. The same thing happened in the second round where he was still in control, even though John also gave several counterattacks. In the end, Terry beat John, the defending champion, so he won the top dog title. As a result of his victory over John last night, all prisoners now acknowledged Terry and submitted to him. In the afternoon, Terry was seen facing Lucas, and Lucas thanked him for winning last night because his fight video sold at a very high price. For this reason, he appointed Terry as his confidant in leading all the prisoners in prison. Not only that, but Lucas also asked Terry to help manage his drug business, which was hidden in prison. After being entrusted with managing Lucas's drug business, Terry secretly took samples of the drugs there. Next, Lucas showed the bodies of the two members of John's group he had killed for attacking Terry, and said there was evidence from him that he really cared about Terry's safety in prison. However, it was also evidence for Terry to reveal the human rights violations committed by Lucas in prison. Besides that, Terry didn't seem so tempted by Lucas's offer that he instead flatly rejected it, saying that he just wanted to get out of prison as promised by Lucas earlier, so he could meet his daughter again. Hearing Terry's refusal, Lucas took him to meet someone waiting in his room, and it turned out that person was Harvey, making Terry realize that the mission was just a fake mission to trap him. Terry finally found out that Harvey and Lucas had worked together in managing illegal businesses in the prison, including the drug business. Then they deliberately took advantage of his fighting skills, as the best former Marine with experience in the street drug business. However, Terry still insisted on refusing their offer. Unfortunately, it turned out that they had taken Bones hostage and threatened to kill him so that Terry would follow their orders. In the end, he was forced to obey Harvey and Lucas. As time went on, without Lucas and Harvey knowing, Terry and Bones secretly instigated all the prisoners to plan an uprising. This was very easy for Terry because all the prisoners were already on his side and were fed up with Lucas's attitude, as he was arrogant and acted arbitrarily toward the prisoners. All the prisoners began to work together to help Terry's plan, and for legal problems, he asked for help from Jeanette, who offered to help him at that time. He handed over all the evidence of Lucas and Harvey's crimes that he had collected so far, as the careless Harvey apparently forgot to take all the evidence from him. For the next fight, Lucas deliberately invited a prisoner known as a tough fighter from another prison named Kaka to fight Terry. Soon after, the battle between them began. In the first round, Terry was knocked down many times by Kaka, but in the second round he began to turn things around and knew Kaka's weaknesses. In the end, he beat Kaka. After that, Terry ordered all the prisoners to start rioting in the dungeon, which made things even more heated and chaotic. Shortly after, Lucas's men appeared carrying weapons to quell the rioting, but their efforts ended in vain because they were outnumbered by the prisoners. At the same time, Lucas tried to save himself, but Terry realized this and tried to chase him until they finally faced each other. Lucas, who had a gun, managed to shoot Terry, who was about to attack him, but Terry managed to survive because he was wearing a bulletproof vest, which was one of the fighter attributes given by Lucas. Soon after, the police arrived at the prison and arrested Lucas. They stopped the riots thanks to a report from Jeanette. The film ends with Terry meeting Jeanette. She tells him he is now free because he helped uncover crimes by Police Commissioner Harvey and other prison officials, including Lucas. The government will also pay for Terry's daughter's treatment until she recovers. Before leaving, Terry said goodbye and thanked Bones for his help. When Terry walked out of the prison, the other prisoners cheered for him. He finally got to reunite with his daughter. Meanwhile, Lucas is in a special cell, upset because he is now facing punishment for his crimes. The film ends with a message: don't judge people by their past or position. People can change due to their circumstances, like Terry, who committed crimes to help his daughter, and Lucas, who abused his power in prison. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next video.